Hello and welcome. So this is all actually footage from, wow, like a couple months ago. The original footage to this had gotten corrupted whenever I edited it, so I've been trying really hard to go back and fix the footage to see if maybe I can get this shrunk down, because the video footage is like over 4 hours long, which I think is part of the reason why I can't get this video to download properly. So I am going to speed everything up. So basically what we're looking at here is I had went to a flea market and gotten Little Red Riding Hood, because you can buy just like pages of old collaged fodder at different flea markets, and this was one that I had found and I wanted to restore it. And what I had been thinking about doing was making a like washi tape comic book strip, and then I wanted to not only restore the images but also fix them. Like for example, the Big Bad Wolf actually has like this cool like sliding piece where it slides from being him and grandma. So those were all different pieces that I wanted to fix, and you can see me actually starting to fix it in the images here. So all I'm doing is just pulling off all of the old original glue and fodder. There are images on the back of these, but I am putting priority on the Little Red Riding Hood, so I did save as many of the old ephemeras on the back as I possibly could, which mostly were all cats. And then anything I did save, I put in that yellow Ziploc bag that's in the top left-hand corner, and anything I could not save, I just simply threw away, because with some of this old fodder, it's just so old that you can't really fix all of it. And you can see in there I have that button that says manifest that shiz. And it's because I had seen this and wanted to work on it and thought that it was quite beautiful and had so many lovely pieces that I was just going to manifest doing it and try my best to it. So I absolutely love working with old ephemera, and I love trying to restore it to make something new and beautiful with it. So this is definitely one of my favorite projects that I have ever done, and I'm still super proud of it. Once we move into our new house, my plan is to actually end up hanging what I created in my son's room, because when he was a kid, he was absolutely obsessed with the Big Bad Wolf and the Three Little Piggies, and Little Red Riding Hood. Like, he absolutely loves stuff like that. Right now you can see I was trying to see if I could fit it into my junk journal. But unfortunately, with how many pieces there were, it just would not have been enough room. So instead, what I ended up doing is opening a fresh canvas and putting everything onto the canvas, because it was going to fit a lot better. Plus, I could do the washi tape comic book strip like I had really wanted to. So you can see me positioning everything here to where it's going to be in 4 different comic book strip pieces. You've got Little Red Riding Hood with her cookies. You've got the wolf watching her, the wolf in sheep's clothing, and then, of course, Grandma's room, where it switches back and forth from the wolf. And you can actually see the little piece that's still on the table is actually a wolf's head, and it fits into a little slot there that goes over Grandma's head. So after I measured everything, that's whenever I went ahead and put down all the washi tape pieces. I do not trust washi tape to stay on its own, so I do always try to glue it down if I'm using it in projects, just because I have had washi tape roll up on me, so you do see me use the Elmer's glue on that to make sure that it's going to work properly. And then I measured each individual square to make sure that everything was going to fit properly before gluing everything down. The washi tape that I ended up using is actually a dark mushroom one. I thought maybe it would kind of go with the fairy tale theme, and I really liked the contrast of the dark elements instead of using like a whiter washi tape. I just thought that everything would definitely have a better pop, and I really liked the red colors in there. I thought it would really go well with Little Red Riding Hood and maybe make her hood pop, because there isn't very much red in the ephemera that was given, only Little Red Riding Hood's, well, hood. So I definitely thought that the red would look good. And then here I'm just replacing everything so I can kind of see what was going on. Originally it was going to be 4 panels, but I do remember now that at the top I decided to make that all one big panel. And on this one I did use acrylic paint. So you'll see me painting in a whole bunch of different details here, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to recreate these worlds. So you'll see me actually repainting all of Little Red Riding Hood's world, and just kind of going in here and making it into a more cohesive story. So that way it'll not only complement the parts that were already existing, but it'll also maybe bring out some new elements too. So right here I'm actually painting in anything that's brown. So that's kind of like going to be like the road, or like the like dirt path going up to Grandma's house. And the same thing in that second one. I was trying to make sure that I was using the same exact colors, because I actually mixed to make that brown. So I wanted to make sure it was in all three sides. That way it would look more cohesive and I wasn't mixing brown at different times, because I could have worked on these separately, but if they were going to be the same colors featured, I did try to do all of those same colors at the same time. The next part that I ended up doing was the sky. So I actually mixed some like sky blue in with white to get that color. So I did mix my own paints. I was kind of playing around with that idea because I don't really mix paints myself that often. But I see Dee Dee do it all the time. So I wanted to try and see if I could create some colors that I could really use. And I didn't have a blue that was as bright as I wanted. So mixing was really the best way to go. So here I am creating my landscape there and getting my sky down. And then I go ahead and do it on the second one too, because both of those are outside, even if we end up not seeing any of the blue sky later on, which I can't really remember at the moment. This picture is packed, so it's like I'm almost relearning with you guys. But my idea was, even if I couldn't see the sky, I wanted to put it in there just so that if there was any pieces of the background showing, it would look like a whole cohesive image. Then after drying it, the next step would be to add the clouds. I really like flat, kind of poofy clouds, kind of like, I would call them like Toy Story clouds. I don't know why, but those are my favorite kinds of clouds. I just like them because they're so happy and go lucky looking. So those are the type of clouds that I went with. Plus they're just really easy to draw, and I feel like it's a very recognizable type of cloud, and because they are like this, I felt like it went more with the storybook element to it, because if I got the clouds too realistic, then I was worried that that cuteness wouldn't pop through. So I had a lot of fun doing those. Usually my clouds do have sort of the 3 bubbles in them, but I did try to make a couple of them different, and I did try to switch up like in what manner they were shelved, because these are kind of like shelf clouds, I guess you could say. And then I did put like a couple of like little streaky streaks in between there just to give it a little something something. And then after that, I mixed some white with some green and then started on the grass, because eventually I want that brown piece on the top to look like a road that's winding. But you know, before I can get detailed enough to do that, I needed to make sure that all my little colors and elements were in there. So that green grass was what I had added next. Something I also wanted to keep in mind is on the left side, if we're looking at the left side of the image, that's going to have Grandma's house, and the right side of the image, which is where I'm painting now, is actually going to have a forest. And then that box I'm now currently working on is actually going to be something that's much closer to us. So the top box is going to be a far away look, while this box here is going to be a close look. So even though I'm painting these the same color, the details will end up differently. It's just sometimes to get the right look, you have to make sure that all your basics are in place. Next, it was time to kind of take a look at the placement. So as you can see, part of that tree was ripped in half, but I wanted to kind of remake it. And then one of the trees actually was ripped into thirds, so I ended up making part of the tree into a bush, which I thought was kind of a fun idea, because I wanted to use all of the pieces that I could, but some of the pieces were still a little tall for where I was putting them. So I had to kind of get a little creative with that. And also it looked like, however this had been originally cut out, it had been cut out in like panels of some sort. So there were like weird cuts in it that you wouldn't have expected to be there. So I just tried to glue all of that together and make sure that it looked right, because there were just certain pieces that almost looked like it had been sun damaged. And I feel like you can really tell on the trees that are above the house, there's that little corner sticking up that's much brighter than the rest of it. Those pieces actually do fit together, like they are supposed to go together, but it turned out that that they were just kind of slightly different colors, so I actually had to go back in and redetail some of it. Where you see that weird big green mountain, that's just going to be behind trees. So the idea is that should just look like extra foliage. And then, as you can see, I painted in some grass and stuff like that. So see, those parts of that tree were too big. So I was going to leave part of the tree as like a stump, which I thought would look kind of cool with the wolf. And I think I did a good job of making it look like I didn't just like cut that tree in half, because what actually happened is it ripped in half. But see, even though that big thing looked like a green mountain, now with everything in its place, it just looks like more trees. And then I added some more grass to really paint it in and make it look like how it was supposed to. And then at this point I was mostly done, so I ended up kind of zooming in so you can kind of see the little details of it. And then after that, I actually had to go to bed. So then when I started working on it, it was actually the next morning. At that point, looking at it the next morning, I decided that it needed a little bit more details at the top. So I ended up taking a brown Posca and drawing like kind of like little bricks in the road, because I thought maybe as I made the bricks look smaller, that it would help kind of give that semblance of, hey, that road was actually going away. It's not just like a weird thing sticking up in the sky. And I feel like that worked out pretty well. Then afterwards on the bottom, there's the door that actually goes to Grandma's house. So I went ahead and got that glued down. And then there's actually a cute little picture of a wolf in sheep's clothing, as well as like a potted plant. So I also found like a little tiny tree bush, which I'm not sure where it would actually go in the comic, but it came with it and it was obviously part of the set. So I did go ahead and put the little tree and the little bush in there because I thought it would kind of keep up that bushy looking appearance. And then I went ahead and started gluing in Grandma's house, like the inside of it. Now, something I had to be kind of careful about is there is actually a little slat in the back so that this piece that I'm working on here, which is the wolf itself, can actually go in. So what I did was I glued the wolf on top of a piece of postcard, and then I used some varnish over top of it to kind of give it some strength. And then later on, I'll actually end up cutting it out. That way it'll be strong again, and hopefully it won't break in that same place, because it looked like somebody had pulled on it so much that it just pulled the wolf's head, just pulled his head off. So being able to reconstruct that piece is really exciting to me. Like I absolutely love that it had an interactive piece in it originally. I do think it would be really fun to maybe someday try to figure out like what this actually went to. Like I didn't try Googling any of the pieces or anything, but I bet it was something inside of maybe like a paper doll book of some sort, or maybe it was actually part of a real storybook that came in like a newspaper or something like that. It'd be really interesting to find out what it originally went to. So if you happen to know, or maybe you remember this from when you were a kid, let me know in the comments below. Like I would love to know what your history is with Little Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf, and if you ever actually saw this in either a newspaper or a book, because that would be super cool to learn about. So yeah, if you want, feel free to comment about that. And while I'm thinking about it, if you could also give me a like or subscribe if you're not already subscribed, I would love for you to join my community. I do different types of mixed media, so I do stuff like this. I also lately have been on a watercolor journey, so a lot of the things I've been doing lately are with watercolor. But in reality, I do art projects with both acrylics and watercolors, and I do a lot of collage. I also like to do coloring books. So there are a lot of different things that I work on, and I'd love for you to join me on that journey. So it looks like by now I've got the first two panels mostly done, and now I'm working on that last one, which is also going to be the most trickiest because that's the one that has that interactive piece. So I went ahead and went in and drew some little floorboards because on Grandma's house one, you can actually see part of the floor and the walls. So I had to figure out a way to not really blend them in, I would say, because I definitely made it to where you can tell that it's an original piece that stands out apart from my own art. Plus, I just, maybe with practice I could blend in and get the right colors and stuff like that, but I just wasn't really confident enough to try that. So instead I just did it in my own style and just kind of let them work together, if that makes sense. But I really like doing these little floorboards, and I did those once again with my brown Posca pen, which Posca pens definitely come in handy. I do use a lot of the white and black ones for mark making, but I would most definitely suggest getting the other colors in Posca pens too. The only thing I do notice is every once in a while you will get ones that are kind of weirdly runny, like my blue is kind of runny and so is my light green. But for the most part, they all work pretty similar to each other, and they do have like a ball or something in them, so you can give them a good shake. So then after I got that floor done, I just kind of waited for it to dry a second. When it was dry, I went ahead and tried to match somewhat of that yellow that's on the walls. So what I used here is, instead of mixing my own paints, what I like to do is, if anybody gives me a paint by numbers set, I will not paint your paint by numbers because I suck at that. But what I will do is I'll take your paint. So I have a whole bunch of paint by numbers paints that actually came with a really pretty painting that I wanted to paint at one point in time, and I decided that I was too frustrated with it because I'm really bad at coloring inside the lines on stuff. But I absolutely loved the mixes of the paints. Oh, so I don't know if you can tell here, but the camera is shaking a lot, and part of that is because my son was actually on the other side of my desk in my rocking chair and was kind of bumping into my table. So I apologize if that got a little shaky there. But after I did the yellow, I did the same thing with some brown. There was a brown that came with a paint by numbers set, and I mixed it in with that yellow and a little bit of white, it looks like. And what I was trying to do is trying to darken the walls just a little bit, so like give it a second layer to see if I could match it even closer. And I think this was a good decision because I feel like the yellow would have been just way too bright, especially whenever I tested it. I was like, how am I going to make this look right? Oh no, my son's playing with the camera again. I totally forgot about that. Whoops. Oh, I even have an original note that says, sorry that the camera got bumped here, sorry. And it's my son playing with the camera. Thank goodness, so it doesn't look too bad. You just get to see one of my legs for a while. So right there I had to be really careful when I was gluing that because there is a little slot for the wolf's head to go through, so I needed to make sure that slot was still going to work, and I double enforced it with glue and tape to hopefully try and keep that there. But I do take an X-Acto knife and go through to make sure that the little hole in front of Granny is still there so that we can get that wolf to go in and out, and I of course tested it. I also added a cat to the top. The cat is actually not part of this original set. I just really liked it and thought it would be funny if there was a cat on the shelf. And it was like, I don't trust Grandma. So I just thought that would be really funny there. So I went ahead and added it there. And then I decided, hey, I would like this to be like a comic book, and comic books actually have little quotes on it. So I ended up putting some little quotes here where it's like, Little Red Riding Hood brings her grandmother, her sick grandmother, some cookies. And then, there was one where like the wolf was like, what a tasty morsel, or something like that. And then in the bottom corner, the wolf will be like, hello, let me in, let me in. And then it'll be like, my, what big teeth you have. So, I just wanted some different little quotes in there to give it that real comic book style. And then eventually I realized that the camera got bumped and I fixed it. Woot woot. Yay to looking out. But I do think that the quotes really added to the story because it reminded me of my favorite parts of Little Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf. So it was just something kind of fun and silly to add, just so that, whenever you were going in it, you could like almost hear those characters speaking in your mind. So I just thought that would be a lot of fun. After that, I was not quite satisfied with that last panel. In the original, it did have a bunch of tears in it, and there was part of the bed was missing. So I redrew in that bed post and then ended up signing it. And then this is what the completed piece ended up looking like. So I think it turned out pretty darn good. I even added a cute little mouse hole there, just for a little bit of more fun. So all in all, this took 2 days, and whenever I originally recorded it, I had 40 hours, my goodness. I had 4 hours worth of footage, and every time I went to try to re-download this, it would not work. The very last thing that I ended up doing was I wanted to do something to where the wolf would not rip in half again, and I'd already reinstalled cardstock in it, to keep it stronger. But the next thing that I wanted to do was actually to glue just a little bit of string on the back of it. So the string would be so that you could actually pull on something to get him out instead of trying to cram your whole finger behind the wolf, because I was afraid that that would just kind of, keep bending him. So I ended up adding that, and then I also ended up varnishing the entire piece. So now it's actually really shiny, and it actually makes all the details pop through, like it makes everything come to life. And that was really it. So kind of crazy. I got a 4-hour video down to 20 minutes, but I hope that you guys really enjoyed this. And if you stuck with me, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Once again, if you could just give me a like or a subscribe, I'd really appreciate seeing you in more videos, and I hope that you enjoyed this one. Thank you. Bye.